Oh, we're right off the bat.
Got him.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Locked Off Logic podcast. This is what I think I'm losing track of how many episodes we have now. It's
either 10 or 11.
Yeah, so thanks for sticking with us this far. I hope you're enjoying our show. This is going to be a little bit different. We're going to throw in episodes every now and again where me and Sam just talk about stories that are important to us, discuss different topics, and just, what is the word?
Riff, bro.
Riff. About stuff that's going on in life, stories that we've experienced, stuff that...
I was going to say Riz is what I was doing earlier.
That's right. So, Sam was risen. You want to say, or is she watching?
She might be watching.
Okay. Sam's on some dating apps, and he's doing really well.
The Rizzler.
The Rizzler. He's the modern day Rizzler. The full grown Rizzler. Isn't the Rizzler like a real person?
I'm the redheaded Rizzler.
There you go. Oh, that's a good one.
Look at that.
R cubed.
R cubed.
Mm-hmm. Very good. You got the question today? If you don't, I have one.
Well, I actually have like a few that I've been trying to like, okay, well, which one do I want to ask?
Okay.
But like, it's like a generic, it's like generic, but it's not.
Okay.
But it's like, why do you get up in the morning?
God, because I have to. I have to, bro. That's a bad answer. But, that's a good question. It's funny because at certain times in my life, I can't wait to get up. Like, you get up and you get this day started, and you freaking hit the gym, and you meditate, and you chalk off the emails, do your food prep, watch your TV shows, just knock things off your list. But, man, over the last probably 6 months or so, like, waking up sometimes gives me, like, some bad anxiety. Like, you wake up and you're just like, I can't have to confront another day. What's going to happen? What's the future hold? What kind of shit's going to come my way today? And I had that feeling described to me once by someone that we both know, of just the anxiety of waking up. I never really felt it before until recently. And I don't know if it's like got something to do with like current political events or just the state of the world or some personal stuff. But waking up, it can be a chore sometimes. And I wake up really nice when it's Friday, and I'm like, okay, this is the last day where like an email might come or something might happen, and for the most part, Saturday and Sunday can be normal days. But I think, honestly, I think in those bad days, what gets me out of bed is just the fact that people depend on me, and I don't want to let them down. I've always been a people pleaser, whether it's for better or for worse. But to know that there's like a group of people like depend on me waking up and actually being productive, or actually you're just breathing, just showing up day after day, I think that gives me at least some kind of motivation to get out of bed every morning, especially when it's hard to get out of bed. On a normal, when I'm in a good headspace, I'm excited to explore the world. I'm excited to live another day. I'm excited to get to love on the people I get to love. I'm excited to see what new stories and what new experiences every day brings, see what kind of impact you can make in the life of somebody else. On a good, that's when you're good. And you're bad, just people depend on you, and so you get up every day. That's my answer.
This is a good answer, man.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, it's an easy question, and it's a fucking hard question. Because, well, why do you get up every day? Well, why does anybody get up every day, right? And life is just interesting. Life is just interesting, and it's wild, and you just never know what the beginning of the day is going to look like, and then at the end of the day. I mean, even just last night, we were doing something, and you were just like, man, look, how'd the day end up like this? Like, never, right? You doing this, and now we're this. Like, it's like, how does the schedule work out like that?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like the more I try and live in the present and just take one day at a time and not really care about tomorrow or yesterday, that my current day is just so much more enjoyable, you know? And it's good to have things to look forward to. I think everybody needs something to look forward to, a goal to work towards, something to achieve. I don't know, we lock onto these things that bring us purpose or think will provide us an answer of some sort, but they're all just our own constructs, our own ideas, you know? But it is, I think, the little things in the day to day that bring a lot of meaning or can bring a lot of meaning. I mean, for example, I'll just bring up this because at one of the reasons that wanted to start this podcast was just to have something to look forward to, right?
Yeah,
I think
same.
at the end of last year when we were at lunch, I think it was lunch or maybe
Yeah,
it was
it was at Zal's.
at Zhao's, you
Yeah.
know, and I was not like in a super
No.
great frame of mind, and it's like, what the fuck is the point of everything, you know? And anyways, we talked about, well, let's just do this because this is enjoyable. We enjoy the things we talk about, the movies we watch, and what can come from it, hopefully good. You know, it's for us more than anybody else. And no offense to everyone who's listening, I appreciate you,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that like genuinely and as kindly as I can. And does the podcast need you to succeed in terms of continuing on forever? Yes. But in terms of why we started this, we're happy to have you along, and we're grateful for what you may or may not contribute to this journey of ours. But it's something that we look forward to. Hopefully, you look forward to it if it's something that you enjoy. But one thing that has been good for me is I've been able to spend a little bit more time outside of my own head, of my own constructs, getting outside of myself a little bit more and spending more time with people. And for years, I was thinking about this last night. For years, I'm like, man, I need to volunteer more. I want to volunteer more. But giving of myself, I don't know where to start, where to begin, you know, and I like my time. I like my personal space. I don't necessarily want to attach people onto me that would then depend on me, that then it becomes an obligation. Like I don't want that to ever be a thing. You know, I don't think that's like fair. And this year I found myself, and I suppose I haven't looked at it as volunteering, but I've been volunteering a little bit more. And some of that's been with your organization and spending time with these wonderful families uh, that we just spend time with, you know, and help out if needs are needed. But last night was kind of a fun little special night for me.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of got coaxed into, I say that jokingly, but I kind of got coaxed into doing homework, helping out this sweet little girl do her homework and helping her learn English and and how to be a functioning society member in this area, right? And I don't know why, but she's also found like a safe space with me. and then I'm like, oh, I need to protect that, right? I don't want to I don't want to betray that trust with anything. And I kind of teased her a little bit last night. And I remember you saying, don't tease. She does not like teasing.
Mm-hmm.
And I teased a little. And after I teased that, in my mind, I'm like, fuck. Did I just let her down? Right? Did I just,
Huh.
And she just rolled right with it.
Oh, good.
And I was like, okay, I'll be a little more careful, but it was fun. And then there was a group of us all, in a living room, and she turned on her favorite little Jurassic Park animated TV show, and then she just like buried herself underneath my arm when I'm sitting on the couch, and she just bundled up, and she's 8 years old.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at her and I'm just thinking like, oh, these moments are the things that matter.
Yeah.
Right? Here is this little girl who has I don't know what depth she personally has experienced, but I know like her family and what they've experienced and where they've come from, and right now she gets to be a little girl. Kind of what you've said in the past about a few things, like she's just she gets to be 8 years old, like any other 8-year-old kid. And I was like, man, in a way, that's like why I wake up in the morning.
Cool. That's cool.
And then I was like, oh, this I guess is volunteering. And I don't know. I didn't want to label it as volunteering because it was like, I don't know. Sometimes you go, well, am I volunteering just because it's like a good thing to do? And so out of obligation, I'm here just because I want to check a box and feel good about myself, right? And I guess in a way, when I kind of was like, oh, this is just volunteering, it was like, no, this is authentic. And I'm just here to be a friend and help with this family as a whole. And for whatever reason, this specific young 8-year-old girl
found
a little friend in me, and she feels safe, right? And she feels safe at home with her parents and her sibling, and I don't know of any reason why she wouldn't, right? But for whatever reason, the first time I met her, we were playing piano together, and then all of a sudden she was like mimicking what I was doing, and I don't play piano, right? But then I'd look at her, and then she would do the same thing, and it was just like this beginning of this little friendship, And anyways, I was like, oh, that's that. That is the purpose of life, right? To feel, to the whole Walter Mitty quote, right? To see beyond walls,
Yeah. Because you don't get those moments until you get out of bed. Like you can, I've tried to stay in bed like all day, and I just can't do it. Like at some point, the tank is full, and your body just says, hey, "We're not capable of sleeping anymore," and you have to just move a little bit. Because I've tried to stay in bed as long as I can. I just don't make it very long. And so, like go back to what you're saying of like volunteering. On a resume, yeah, that would count as like volunteering. But I think in life, it just counts as being there, being present, and like this girl that Sam was talking about. I've known her since she was like 4 or 3. She's really little, and she's had a relatively good life. For the most part, like we found her when she was there, pretty stable. But in the last couple of years, she hasn't been to school in a year. She went from orphanage to orphanage or migrant center to migrant center to migrant center in Tijuana, Mexico. And some of those were really great, and some of them were full of rats and maggots and had people that were predatory. Like there's just a lot of danger that she had to get accustomed to as an 8-year-old kid, just constantly be vigilant of like her surroundings. And even like when she comes here, like here in the States, like she's stable. They're doing things, you know, the right way to make sure they get all the documentation stuff set up. But with the current political climate, there's just a lot of anxiety around that for people that are not from the United States and people that are brown specifically. And so she feels that. She feels that in school. She's the only one that doesn't know the language. She told me a story that I think we shared at my house where like her first experience with like a school shooter training. Did I tell you this story?
Oh, I didn't know that was I didn't know it was her.
Yeah, it was her, bro. It was her. It was so she because the last time we were there, her older sister was, you know, pulled me aside, was like, you guys don't believe what we just did at school. We did a school shooting drill. And this sister, she understands English enough to know like what was going on, but they don't have that where they're from. But here we we have the drills pretty frequently. And so for her, like there's the anxiety of like, okay, she's brown, the current political climate, it just creates some anxiety. Like whatever, you know, side of the aisle that you fall on, like the right or the left, or you support mass deportations or not, it causes anxiety for people that are not from here originally. And then you add into just a new culture, and part of that culture, unfortunately, is school shooting drills. And this girl had just watched something on Netflix about like I think it was a cartoon like Cinderella or something that was based, not, it wasn't Cinderella, but there's a cartoon, a Disney cartoon that's based in like 1942 London, and the sirens go off, meaning like there's the fighter jets from Hitler and there might be bombings and you're supposed to go into the basement and hide from the bombs. And so that's what she thought was happening, because she didn't understand what was going on. It was a drill, but they went to the drill. All the kids went to the basement, and she had like, you know, this little panic attack because she thought she's about to get ready to get bombed because she speaks the language and she doesn't have school shooting drills in her school. It's new, and so she has that anxiety of just the current political climate, and so when she finds people that are safe, I mean, it's only natural that she's like, okay, this is a safe person. They don't care that I'm brown. They don't care that I can't speak English. They seem genuinely interested in the stuff that interests me. Because this kid specifically you're talking about is a very unique 8-year-old in the fact that she doesn't want anything to do with Barbies. Nothing. Doesn't interest her. She likes dinosaurs. She likes science. She likes that kind of stuff. She's not a great student. She's a much more like a visual learner. So if you put her down in a classroom, she's just miserable. Especially when and she's very social. She's a social butterfly. So if she has to do her homework by herself, she just doesn't do it. This doesn't happen. And so you describe, like, you know, you're volunteering. What you're doing, I think you're doing, is being present from someone that needs to know that in this new place where she's living, that she can encounter people that are safe, that are genuinely interested in what she's interested in, and despite some of the flaws that she can already see in herself, lack of language skills or whatever, that it's not a make it or break it factor for her. Because like in school, like she's had friends that stopped talking to her because it's just too hard to use Google Translate, and so she can find someone that doesn't care that she can't speak the language perfectly yet. I mean, it's only natural that she would feel that safety.
Well, she like all of them is just a good special human, right? Like all of us.
I think you're spot on too, of like why you get out of bed in the morning. There's a podcast I used to listen to that a good friend of mine that we should totally have on the podcast because she's really interesting. Her name is Marissa Johnson. Shout out Marissa if you're listening.
Shout out Marissa.
Shout out Marissa.
I don't know you, but shout out.
Oh, she's great. She's great. But she used to have this YouTube channel called Living a Good Story, and her family's really unique to where when they were part of like this really like corporate America, really made a lot of money, but just the family was miserable. The kids are always in their phones, they're always fighting with each other, and when they have 4 kids, when 2 of the kids got to be teenagers, they were just like, you know, this is not we're creating a life that I don't like.
Yeah.
So fuck this. They sold all their stuff. They became doTERRA salespeople, kind of built up like their army of doTERRA salesmen to where they could be financially sustainable with their own little teams. I don't know how the whole system works, but something similar. And then they bought an RV, put their kids in homeschool, and decided to travel the United States for a whole year in an RV staying in an RV park, and just being forced to stay together as a family and having this big adventure together, living this good story. I started a YouTube channel because of it, got a big following of just, I think, families that were going through something similar and watching them living their good story. To where when they got done, they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we want to go live in the Dominican Republic and serve for a year. Do you have people we can serve? I was like, yes, I do. If you can get there, I'll put you in contact with the right people. So they kept on living their good story. They kept on getting out of bed, having these experiences like wave like the tapestry for their story. And I think last night was a good example of just because essentially what we were doing is we were making cupcakes and doing homework. Is what we were doing, and just in a very human level, it was just like a normal Wednesday night in the neighborhood, right? But you think of like the people in that room, and I won't go into any more stories than the one we're talking about. But
And I'll just quickly interject. It was like that moment in Logan at the dinner table.
this is what it feels like.
Just that moment at the dinner table in Logan, right when it was just look, smile, smiles, laugh, because everyone's laughing. It was just this moment of just pure innocence of just like living in this moment of reacting to what's happening.
Yep. Yeah, and it was that moment of just like humanity, I think.
Yeah.
Where so you talk about like this specific little girl and the stuff that we just talked about in her story. You talk about like her sister. You talk about her mother. You talk about other people that were present, like in this experience. You talk about you and I, like the experiences that we've gone through. There was a lot of trauma, I guess, like in that room. And last night was just a night of just like this is what life looks like. This is what it's supposed to feel like. Like you're supposed to freaking be watching dinosaurs with your new friend, or you got a zit. Let's go buy you a little star so you can put it on your zit, and so nobody notices. Although I think it draws more attention. But whatever. And just it was just it's like this is what life is kind of supposed to be like. To where all these people have gone through all these different things are in a safe place, and like our problems aren't gone. Like how are we gonna pay the bills? We don't know. What's going to be the next thing that's going to come up with the politics? What's going to be the next email that comes through? What's going to be potential threat that happens in the future? All that is going to come at some point. But last night it didn't matter because it was a safe spot. It was a safe place, and it's everybody's stories that we're living together are kind of intertwined at that moment. And unless you get out of bed and live your story, then you don't get to experience something like that. And those stories, like the story that led up to like that living room last night, all those people, you and I included, had to get up and each and every day just put a little bit more in our story, just move a little bit further along in our own personal plot, so that at some point we could end up in this scene together, our Logan scene. We just look around, just got the TV on, cupcakes on, someone's on their phone, other people are talking. Some people might be like half asleep, but we don't know. We're having another event like this tomorrow too, and I'm really excited. But it's all of our personal stories coming together for just a moment of just humanity and beauty. And I think the longer that I live, the more I realize just how fleeting happiness is and how hard it is to grasp onto. And when you find it, man, you cling on to that shit. You just happiness is too rare in this world that when you find it, you just cling on to it.
Yeah, man, it's been a really rewarding experience, kind of having these moments and times where you can just kind of sit back and look and experience what's happening right in front of you, and even uh, a little bit like my dad just not too long ago fell, broke his leg and his ankle, and he's in his late 60s. Already doesn't have a lot of great balance, so this was not helpful in that regard. Has diabetes, and he started taking this medication or two medications for this diabetes for the last, I don't know, maybe the last year or two. Maybe it's been longer, maybe it's been shorter. Like, I don't know. But that's just like it's just eating him alive. Like it has just eaten all of his muscle mass, and he's just shrinking. And it's been like a little alarming to me to see, because my dad's always been like this big dude, and now I'm looking at like half of what he used to be in just a short amount of time, and it's made me look at like what I'm doing now, right? Uh, I don't have diabetes. I have a family history of diabetes, and I've ebbed and flowed in terms of like how I've been in my weight, right? And I know that eventually path A will lead to some form of diabetes, and path B will lead to not. And I go, when I'm 67, where would I want to be in that position? And I go, I know I don't want to be in the current position my pops is in, so it's been an interesting beginning of the year in a lot of ways, just to kind of just examine, yeah, like what do you do in the day to day? And what you do in the day to day, like if you don't take care of today, it will catch up to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that tomorrow might be literally tomorrow. That tomorrow might be a month, a year, 10 years, 20 years. But I think that is maybe why it's so important to just be present, because if you don't take care of what's in the present, it it will come back to you or for you in one way or another, right? And sometimes we have to like put a pause on things and prioritize what we take care of or not take care of in the moment, and who we spend time with or whatever. But I mean, the outreaching effect of that is real. Like that ripple in the pond, like it's going to hit the edge of the pond and bounce back, right? But the more you're doing in the present moment and causing more ripples, it will break it will break the those things will break the return of the other things, right? So yeah, it's just interesting. It's life is interesting. I I saw a friend, and I don't know if it's true or not, just recently get caught up in an affair, and I look at and I go, well, what happened? Obviously, I don't know all the details, right? But I'm like, what happened to get to that point, And another friend was like, well, one thing led to another, led to another, led to another, and then it just got out of control, right? And of course, we don't know, so we don't know all the details or stuff. But man, life is just messy. Life is just messy, and it is not black and white, and everything's made up. We're just trying to make do, right? So why not just accept the current state that you're in and do what you can with what you have with where you're at, and do it one step at a time. And I have to tell myself that, because I'm always like, well, I need to be going here, I need to be going there, I need to be working on this. If I ever want to get to this point, I got to be doing this. And those checks and balances help us progress. But what's it all for if we don't enjoy right now? And if we don't learn to enjoy right now, how are we going to enjoy it when it shows up 10 years from there? Because like you're going to be chasing the next thing. So wherever this kind of started in its weave, in its way, what we're riffing on, it's just been an interesting but a good first year for me in a lot of ways. Not without its challenges. Um, and then I look at, friends that might be in heavier spots than me, and go, man, like, wish I could help or do more or whatever. But I mean, I don't want to throw you on the under the boat, but uh, dude, I've seen a heaviness on your shoulders the last little bit,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, and we've talked about this, right? And it's we try to be strong, but and we think that if we have kind of these moments of weakness or letdown, that we're weak, or we might then show other people that look at us as these, you know, really strong individuals that have our shit together, uh, you know, then they'll just lose all of their faith and trust in us if they see us have a weak moment. And that's just bullshit, you know? But it's hard to swallow.
Oh God, yeah. 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 Yeah, it's funny too. I think that's not funny. Like that's yeah, life's heavy. Life's hard. Um, but I think of just something that I learned a lot last year. You talk about your dad and just life. Just you just have chances to just, I don't know, be there for people, step up for people, like show people that you're present. And so last year I spoke with the United Nations, right? Maybe I've told this right on the podcast. I apologize if I have. But man, I feel like I was on top of the world. I was like, shit, like I fucking made it. Like I'm at the United Nations. I'm here speaking. People listen to what I have to say.
You got like an
I
award,
got an
right?
award, and there's people in that room in the United Nations in Vienna that waited, I don't know, 40 years for their moment in the sun in Austria, and I was there at 34. I was like, shit, bro, I'm untouchable. Oh man, I've made it.
And let me paint another picture about this. Like when we see movies, and then there's like this culmination of decisions being made, it's oftentimes it's being made in this United Nations conferencing room.
Yeah, I mean, freaking Civil War, Captain America: Civil War. That's when the plot happens because supposedly Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, blows up the Black Panther in Vienna, Austria, the United Nations, and that's where the whole plot unfolds, which didn't happen. Bucky Barnes was innocent, obviously. It was Baron Zemo that did it. But yeah, you're in that room with just the most powerful people listening to your voice as a subject matter expert. And I go home, and stuff happens. Some threats happen. It affects people I care about, and all of a sudden you just realize, you know what? I'm not Captain America. I'm not the Black Panther. I'm not Hugh Jackman. I'm just Tyler, and I'm very mortal. And at any moment, this could all just go away. This could all end. And through this time where I was trying to figure out just like this own stuff I was going through, I'm still kind of figuring out. I'm still figuring it out. But I just realized that you get one chance at life. There's no redos. And I tell this people all the time now, where it's like I can't get tomorrow back. I can't predict tomorrow. I've got today. That's guaranteed. Hopefully. You only get one shot this life. I get one chance to show you that I care because there's no do-overs. There's no waiting. And so I think of like this family you just talked about, where they got into the States. They came legally into the States, but they had no money. They had no nothing. So they were stranded in San Diego. And when they called me, I got to be honest, it was really inconvenient for me. I was at the gym, and it was the third week of football season. My fantasy team was 2-0. My favorite thing to do during football season is just to plant my ass on that couch and watch football from 11 a.m. until 9 p.m. and do nothing. And now I couldn't do that. Couldn't do that today. And so I was debating in my head, I'll just go pick them up tomorrow. Tomorrow, there's no football games on. It's a Monday. Let's go pick them up tomorrow. But the consequences of that is they have to sleep on the street. They get no food. They lose trust in me. I'm like, well, shit. I have to go. I have to go. You couldn't help it. So I left. I missed the football games, and I drove fucking 12 hours to San Diego. And I picked them up, and then brought them back the next day. That's one example. Second one is like you talk about like the humanity of people and our stories and our because it really is just one big story we're all living. It's a beautiful story. Some people have horrific stories. Some people are living a great story, and some people are living just an average story. But it's a story, and the stories at some point end. Unless your name is Law and Order Special Victims Unit, there is no story that never ends. And like my grandma's going to die. She's probably got. I hope she listens to this, but she probably got another 6 weeks. Probably like her body's shutting down and things going on, and so just you think back like, well, what could I have done to show her that I care more? What can I do now, like in this moment, to show her I care at this present moment? And so, those thoughts going through your head. And then the third example that I'll use is, one of my New Year's resolutions was just to, like you talked about, just be present with people. Just don't wait. If you can see them, if you can let them know that you care, follow your gut, like whatever you want to call it. So I have this friend, and she's coming on the podcast. She gave me permission to share this story too, so I can use her name and stuff. But she's from Afghanistan. I met her in Mexico way back when, 2016. She was living in Afghanistan. An American soldier helped her get out of Afghanistan because the soldier knew that it was just a matter of time before the Taliban came back. Got her out. She was in Mexico for a long time before she finally got asylum into the States. She lives in Boise. And I've met her once, and we chatted on Instagram maybe like 3 or 4 times. And I found her again on Instagram, like the algorithm mashed us up again or whatever. And I was like, I know you. It's been 5 years since I've talked to you. How are you doing? She did the same to me, and she was like, I'm living in Boise, and I was like, oh, I'm close. I'll drive down and we'll have dinner in the middle of the week. Just hadn't seen her for 5 years. Didn't want to wait any longer. I drove down and we had dinner, and on the way home, she called me and she was like, hey, can I talk to you about something? I was like, yeah. And she was like, my sister was gang raped by the Taliban, and it's left her nearly unable to walk. Her sister's 15. Her uncle, who was also part of the Taliban, basically sold her out of where she was going to be so these other Taliban members could abuse her. And because she's seeking medical attention, the Taliban wants to kill not just her, but her whole family. And
which would include her.
Yeah. It would include her, her mom, her dad, her little sister, her little brother, and her older brother. And so this person is telling me about this on the phone. I was driving between, I think Boise and Twin Falls or something. And she was like, I need help. What do you think? And I was like, you can't say no. Like you can't, you hear that. And you're just like, how can I help? So, I got started to raising money, knocking on doors, trying to see if we can raise this money to get her family out, get them to Iran, and then hopefully get them a visa to Mexico where we have people that we know. I don't know anybody in Iran, but get them in Mexico and see if they can get some help in Mexico before they can actually come into the United States and be with their daughters again. There's 2 daughters living here in the States. And so, that story is still unfolding, but it's a new thread of this story because I chose to get out of bed, and I chose to just not wait to see someone that I missed, that I cared about. And I think when you show that, and I'm speaking on her behalf, like I have no idea like what her point of view on this whole situation is, but you show someone that you're willing to just come in the middle of the week and have dinner and talk and earn the trust, where because that is really personal shit. Or if my sister was gang raped by the Taliban, that's really personal. And after not speaking to me for probably 3 or 4 years, just because life happens and people lose touch, to then disclose what was happening and then ask for help, that only happens because you show people that you care and you don't postpone to connect with them again. And it's not convenient at all. This is another project to work on, another mission to fundraise for, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's once you come across that situation, it's just hard to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, man, and you hear those stories, and it's like, well, I guess before that, your earlier comment, you're not Captain, like you felt like you're on top of the world,
Yeah.
right? You were like, I am Iron Man, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're just like, shit, I am not Iron Man. I am not whatever, right? I'm not the Winter Soldier. And you said, I'm just Tyler. And I was like, and being just Tyler is enough.
Yeah, we'll hope so.
You know? But genuinely, and being just Sam is enough.
Yep.
And being just you, whoever you are listening to this podcast, driving, taking a shit,
Yeah. Working out,
on
cleaning.
a walk, whatever, you just being you,
Yeah.
all of you, good and bad, is enough, right? And when we can just be ourselves, that's when I think magic happens. That's just who you are. You're in Boise. That's a 6.5 hour drive.
Well, 4.5.
4.5 hour drive.
Depends on how fast you go.
Yeah.
Depends on how obedient you are to the law.
It is not convenient.
No, it's
right? But you're like, hey, I know you. I know your story. Like, I want to check in, right? I'm going to drive hours just to see how you're doing, right? And like that is enough, including the thoughts that may or may not have arrived. Fuck, that's a 4-hour drive. Do I really want to do that? San Diego, fuck, that's a 12-hour drive.
That was a long drive, bro, I tell you.
Like, yeah, and all of us are going to have those feelings, right? So we shouldn't shame ourselves either by going, this is really inconvenient right now.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't ask for this.
I didn't ask for this.
I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
There's 6 feet under.
But then, and I'm hearing that story and the story of this woman and her sister, and you're obviously like, that's horrific, right? That's horrific. But there's a separation. There still is a separation to that, because from hearing that, I don't know either of them. I don't have a face to a name. I just have a story, right? And then I can, and naturally, morally, I'm like, wow, that's awful. And then I start to think, well, fuck, if that sister was the girl that I just had snuggle up to me last night at Jurassic Park, it's like, fuck, dude. How could you not?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Someone has come along.
Man. So just flaws and all, fears and all, just being who you are is enough, right? And it's just, sometimes life is drudgery, sometimes it's skipping. And it's just making it to the next day. I just watched American Primeval. Just binge watched it. We're gonna talk about this in more detail.
I still need to watch it. He's got to finish Narcos, and then I have to finish American Primeval.
Yeah.
So 2 episodes upcoming for you, Narcos.
Well, and I went, and so Tyler's like, you gonna finish Narcos? You gonna finish Narcos? And I'm like, yes. So I go to finish Narcos, turn on Netflix, and then it immediately starts a trailer for American Primeval, and I didn't know what it was, but I'm watching it. I'm like, what is this? And then it was like American Primeval. I'm like, oh, I've heard about this, right? So I watched it, and then I'm hooked. And then I binged that shit in 12 hours.
How many episodes?
It's only like 6.
Okay.
And they're not, it's like the shortest episode is like 36, and the longest is maybe an hour.
Okay.
So not like a ton. But, dude, talk about a brutal world where waking up just seems unappealing at all. The late 1800s, in the Utah territory where we're at, right? And like no clean water, no real comfortable living or homes, just fucking wagons and rocks and cold and lawlessness. And and I'm like, fuck, I'm glad I was born in 1992. Like, holy shit, man. And what a luxury it is to have an experience like what I have. And um and then I also go, man, like, and they didn't, I guess they didn't know any better. They didn't know any different. They don't know the life that we live. But I like, wow, the determination that they had to wake up every day, you know? And some of them moving across the country for a better life, to build a better life, and all of those conflicts and whatnot. Like, we're all just trying to find our own fucking way.
Yeah. I just had something come out of my head. You talked about like just I'm gonna bring it back to the modern day where a movie that's like I think an underrated movie. I think probably my favorite movie of that year it came out. I think it was 2023 was Jake Gyllenhaal in The Covenant.
Oh yeah.
I love that shit. That show is so good. And I look at that story for like it's just I think about it a lot now because of like what I'm because this is my first time ever dealing with the Taliban at all. Like narco traffickers, sex traffickers, American pedophiles, like that stuff is like I know how those people work, but the Taliban, this is all new for me. This is all new. But there's a scene in that movie, and it's my favorite scene in the whole movie. And Jake Gyllenhaal says nothing. Shit goes down in Afghanistan. He comes back, and there's a scene where he's in bed with his wife, and he's just freaking sitting up against like his back cover.
I remember this.
And he's just like this. He's just like just lost in thought. He's just can't get that interpreted out of his head that he left in Afghanistan. And I think you just know that he's about to do something crazy. You're just like, what is this guy about to do? Because he connected so strongly with this other person that this other person is in. I mean, this other person is. I mean, he's fucked. He's living in a Taliban-controlled Afghanistan as a former American interpreter. He is fucked. You got this American soldier. By all intents and purposes, he's done. He's out of the war. He gets to cash out his pension, maybe do private security for a while before he retires and does something else, training or something. But he chooses to go back. That is not convenient. It's not cheap, and it's not rational unless his soul connected so deeply with this other person that not doing anything, which it just wasn't an option. He's like, I know what I have to do. I'm afraid to do it. What movie is that off of? It's Star Wars. Like I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the
Kylo.
strength to do it. Yeah, yeah. He says it twice, both in which I love Kylo Ren. I love that character. Just we'll talk about it later. But he's sitting in the bed and he's like, I know. He had the same thought in his head. I'm sure. I know what I have to do. I don't have the strength to do it, but saying no is just not an option. Without me looking at myself in the mirror and just being ashamed of what looks back. And I think that's so beautiful because I can think of, maybe up to that extreme, but I can think of people that I would do that for that cost me a lot personally, financially, maybe even spiritually to help them out of a situation where, some of the situations I'm thinking of right now, some are life-threatening and some are not. But it's just something where us humans where your soul just connects with another person so intimately that not doing anything is just not an option. And if you don't, you'll sit in bed like Jake Gyllenhaal and just stare and stare and stare, have insomnia until you just have to go do something. And I love that story because I think it goes to like what you were like. You talk about you and this kid that you're talking about now, this 8-year-old girl. Like connected, right? You've done homework. You've done, menial shit together. You probably go to a school play. You'll probably take her hiking in the summer. You'll probably let her come on like one of your film sets. Like, I don't know what the future holds. But if something were to happen that's maybe not convenient or safe for you to get involved, like I don't see a scenario where Sam Sargent's sitting in his bed at night being like, well, that passed. Like I see a scenario where it's like this person that I connected with needs my help and I'm gonna fucking show up despite the inconvenience it's gonna cause to me and potentially life-threatening situation that may come up because I get involved. Because your soul connects and it's just you can't fucking help it. Like when your soul connects so deeply with another person that you just care so much about their well-being and they need help, you just can't help it. You just can't help it.
And I think like going back to the covenant, you look at that story and Jake Gyllenhaal and the character he plays and the interpreter, and what is the alternative if Jake's character doesn't go out? And for the most part, I think something will work out. Something will find a way. But in that instance, and with certain instances with individuals in our own lives, I think that there isn't an alternative. And because there's not, and that is known to whatever you want to believe in, the universe, to a spiritual connection, to a God, a brother and a sister on a higher level, like when that is there and that person needs you and you need that person, your soul cannot rest. And if you do nothing, your soul will never rest. And if you do something, you will find that it might not be the smoothest of yellow brick roads, but there is a yellow brick road that is paved to get you where you need to go with that person, because there's only you two in that situation with that need. There's nobody else. So it has to work out when you're locked in like that. At least that's my opinion. That's my belief. Is like if you are connected to a person or a mission or an idea so strongly enough that it consumes you and you can't do anything, it's all going to work out. You just have to let the cards fall how they fall. But it's probably going to be a royal flush in the end. Even though, it might not be convenient and the players you're up against might have a pretty good hand too. They don't know what your hand is, and you don't even know what your hand is. But there's a driving factor behind it that knows, and it's going to just make it work out. That's like my belief.
One thing I love is, and some people hate this trope, but I kind of like it still until it gets, redone, is like the hero that you find like 20 years later and you find him to be like a grumpy old man. I know some people like hate that trope. Like, Logan kind of fits in that trope where he's the X-Men. He's the immortal X-Men, and you find him in Logan. He's a drunk. He's an Uber driver, and he just does all these things. But I think of like Luke Skywalker. I love me some Star Wars, right? And I love like thinking of like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. This motherfucker is gonna be like a legend at this point. Like this motherfucker walked into a room with the Emperor
and Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker is the only one that walked out of that fucking room. Like, that is legendary. That is so fucking legendary. Where it's like he had to have been just like this.
That's galactic.
Like in the remnants of the Empire or like the rebellion, be like, no, you guys don't understand. Luke Skywalker walked into a room with Emperor Palpatine, the most powerful Sith Lord that ever lived, and Darth Vader, the ultimate enforcer, and Luke Skywalker was the only one that walked out of that room. They have no idea like what went down. They just know that Luke Skywalker was the only one that came out. And fast forward 30 years, when you get into the Force Awakens and then The Last Jedi, like this guy who saved the galaxy let down his nephew. Had a moment of temptation where he's like, I need to kill this kid because this kid is going to be the next Darth Vader. Let down his nephew, let down his sister, let down his brother-in-law, let down the New Jedi Order, and can't handle like the weight of that grief. This guy saved the whole galaxy and let down 3 people, and he goes into a self-exile. When you find him in, The Last Jedi, I know people have like issues with The Last Jedi and Rian Johnson and all these different things, which I know it's not a perfect movie, but you find this Luke Skywalker who, despite all he accomplished, he is traumatized. He had things happen to where he forgot who he was, right? He forgot that this was the guy that walked in a room and there's the only one that walked out, but now he's just like this old hermit. And in the end, when he had a place to step up that would eventually cost him his life, he freaking did it. And like, I love that because there's this book I read once where like they kind of like they want you to create like a highlight of yourself of like the things you've accomplished and like, I see it like when I walk through your house where I see like that big ass award that like that film thing gave you for your cinematography and Sweet Molly. Just to have that Rolex of things to remind you of just how like what you've accomplished, because you'll have moments where you just forget that. You forget that like you talk about, who's listening to this, just like you forget what you've accomplished and you've done, like the badass you are in the eyes of so many. Because we're just I think as humans we're just a little hard on ourselves sometimes. Like, I don't know what it is, but like Luke, I'll go back to Luke Skywalker because we were talking about Luke. Like it's not his fault. It wasn't his fault. Like he was doing this. He didn't know how to train up a Jedi, and he loves his nephew, and he sees. I mean, he walked into a room with Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine. He knows how sick those pricks are. Or at least Darth Vader at the time. I know he redeemed himself and everything, but he had doubts in himself and his nephew, and it cost him his relationship with his sister. It cost him his reputation as like this great general of this resistance, and everything like that. Like he forgot like if you look at his Rolodex of like badassness, oh my gosh! Like there might not be anybody more badass in all of cinema history than Luke Skywalker, and he just forgot. And I think you look at himself. He's a little too hard on himself. Listen to the little girl's mom yesterday in her interview that she gave. She's really hard on herself for the stuff that happened to her. Even like, my pity party this week, like I was probably a little too hard on myself for the things that have happened as well. But humans, we just forget. And I feel like sometimes it's easier to self-blame and it makes us feel better than just to admit that we have no control over this whole thing. We're just a bunch of souls flying through space at 1 billion miles an hour. It's like, that's really scary. It's easier to think that I could have done something different and I didn't. And that's why things ended up poorly, because it makes us feel like we are a little bit more in control than we really are.
For sure, man. Well, and in hearing that, I also just thought of Jinx.
Oh, yeah, Jinx.
Right? And it's like, Jinx.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. And you're just a young, innocent, like, child in a cruel, brutal world, and you're just trying to find your way and fit in somewhere, or feel like you're a part of something, and you have the best of intentions, and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and shit goes wrong, right? And she forgets. Jinx forgets who she is. She forgets who her father is, right? Forgets who her sister is. Her sister forgets who who she is in that moment, right? It's just these times that we get so clouded with the weight of everything that it's simply forgetting, and it's just getting to a point to remembering who we are and what we belong. I, and that's why I think I like movies and stories for me is I just gravitate to and I attach so much because they're an escape, but they're also the thing that brings me back to like the true reality of life. And now I'm going back to the time I went and saw Lion King for the first time in Broadway when I was like, I don't know, 17 or 18 years old, and I'm sitting there watching this performance, and Simba has run away from his life, his home. He blames himself for Mufasa's death and runs into this monkey baboon Rafiki, and he's looking in the water, and he's like, look into the water, man, like what do you see? And he with trepidation looks over the surface of the water, and and he's just like, no, stupid, look again, and hits him in the head and taps the water, and the ripple kind of blurs the image, and then as it settles again, it's Mufasa. And then they have their exchange, and he runs off and he starts chasing him, and he's like, my father, whatever, I forget all of this, but right, he gets to this point and he's like, you see, he lives in you, like, and then Mufasa's face comes from the stars, and he's like, Simba, you have forgotten who you are. Fuck. He doesn't say fuck. But he says, Simba, you have forgotten who you are, and therefore you have forgotten me. Because he is his father. Like, they are one. And I remember at that time in my life seeing that, like, it changed the trajectory of my life. And stories are so crucial to me and my everyday like existence. People like, oh, you like movies so much? You talk about movies so much? Like, you base your life around movies? And it's like, yeah, motherfucker. It is the thing that lights the spirit in me alive, that makes me feel, and it helps me understand life. And I can experience like what I'm feeling and understand what I'm feeling based on the human condition that's being portrayed in front of me in whatever form that is, animation, live action, you know. And I think we're always on the run so much that we forget just to look at our own reflection and remember what that is and where that comes from and how good it is. You know?
I think even like some of the best characters in film are kind of like afraid of like what you're describing. Like when you were describing Simba, I was thinking of Aragorn. And like all that guy wants to do is just hunt orcs in the woods. That's really all he wants to do. He just wants to be a ranger, right? I remember we watched Lord of the Rings last year, and there's a scene where he tells Frodo like, "I would have gone with you to the end, into the very fire of Mordor." And the guy's sword lights up, and he's like, "Run, get out of here." He runs, and he turns around. There's like all these orcs coming around, and he just pulls out his sword,
And like I started getting emotional. I was like, "That's the fucking king of Gondor! Like, look at this guy. He's gonna take on all these like this whole army of orcs until Legolas and Gimli show up. Hopefully, at some point, because right now it's like 1 on 40, 1 on 40, and he was winning. And throughout the whole series, like it's almost like he knows that is his destiny, right? Like at some point, he's gonna have to take that freaking throne and be a king of Gondor. He doesn't. He just doesn't want it. He's such an amazing character, but even like this, he has doubts in himself. He's like, that's not for me. But the actions that he does, I think, day in and day out, even like prepare him for that destiny he knows is coming, but he doesn't necessarily want. He could have taken the ring, no problem. Like he could have overpowered Frodo, no problem. But he didn't. He was always sticking up for those hobbits. He was always sticking up for the hobbits. He was always kind to those who needed kindness. He was always showed bravery to those that relied on him for bravery, and did these actions that led to when he took up the king's mantle. We're like, well, of course, about freaking time. Like we were all waiting for this to happen. We all wanted this to happen. You've been showing us this is you for the longest time. It's you that didn't want this. You are enough. Like we know you're not Isildur. We know you're not Arathorn. You are Aragorn. You are enough, and you are who we want because you've shown us who you are throughout this time. And it has to be something like Simba too, where Simba spent enough time with that. And I haven't seen Lion King for a long time, but from what I remember, he spent a lot of time with that dang monkey, and even more so with Pumbaa.
Timon and Pumbaa.
Timon and Pumbaa. Like they knew his destiny was going to be king of Pride Rock. And they knew that because of the actions that Simba put in and day out to show that he was qualified to be king, despite him maybe not wanting that title. On a side note, I watched Lion King fairly recently in 2019, and I gotta tell you, I think Simba gets way too much credit in that movie because they are, in that last fight, they are fucked. Like those hyenas are kicking the shit out of them until that dang warthog shows up. When the warthog shows up, that's when the fight actually changes because the warthog, it's like a bowling ball and like those hyenas are just bowling pins.
Pumbaa.
I was watching this with, so I was in Guatemala and we were at a graduation for a bunch of survivors and their kids.
And are you watching the cartoon version?
Yeah.
The original, okay.
Yeah, I was watching this, there was like this graduation for 12 adult survivors of trafficking, and I was watching the movie with their kids, and we were watching Lion King, and Pumbaa shows up, and that's when the whole fight changes. I'm like, yo, Pumbaa does not get enough credit for what he contributed to his fight. I mean, yeah, I know Simba put on a great fight, he fought Scar, he's the symbol, but they were screwed. They were totally screwed until Pumbaa shows up, and just, like, he mowed down, I remember when he shows up, he mows down at least 15 hyenas, like in the first 20 seconds when he's on screen in that last fight. Give my guy Pumbaa some love.
Dude, well, I love that because in that moment, Pumbaa remembers who he is.
Yeah.
This whole time, he's been pretending to be something else.
Some kind of hippie hanging out in the jungle or something.
But he is a fucking warthog.
Yeah.
And those are ruthless, and they charge everything.
Yep.
And they will not back down. Even to their death, they will just fucking go.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that before.
And it was because he remembered or he forgot in who he was trying to pretend to be.
Yeah.
And he just then naturally was just a warthog.
Yeah.
He was just a warthog in that moment, which was enough.
You know, I just had another thought. I'm gonna go back to Star Wars. This scene always gets me too. Every time I watch it, I always get like emotional because it's so well done. Remembering who you are, right? Like that's a good just because we forget. We put labels on ourselves. You know, I guess you're in the interview with this girl's mother. She kept labeling herself as a prostitute, a hooker, a slut. She didn't use the words like mother. She didn't use like entrepreneur, like these titles that are more empowering and not demeaning. And during this interview, she was just forgetting who she really was. One of my favorite scenes in all of cinema is in Return of the Jedi, again, where Luke and Vader are fighting, and Luke's holding back. He's like, I ain't gonna fight you, Dad. And Vader starts to like poke fun at him, where it's like, if you don't, I'm gonna go get your sister, and she'll turn to the dark side, and Luke loses his shit. John Williams, his score in that moment portrays Luke's anger and rage, and also like the tragedy that is Darth Vader's life, where he was born a slave, he was then sold into a cult essentially that prohibited him from having any kind of human emotion, and when his emotions started to bottle up in this person that he cared about, he was manipulated by another cult leader in taking her life and becoming his slave once again, while also being a deformed human being. Like his life is a tragedy, and the score plays that really well. And Luke cuts off his hand. He starts the heavy breathing. Palpatine comes in, and Luke's like, I'm still not joining your cause, bro. And Palpatine just starts to torture him. And like Darth Vader is such an intimidating figure. He's 7 foot something. He's got the Nazi helmet on. He breathes. He's black. Like he's just, even now, like when people hear, I mean, Darth Vader first appeared on screen, what, like in the 1970s? Even now, 50, 60 years later, when people hear that iconic breathing, people still get chills. People still like, oh my gosh, it's Darth Vader. He's back. And the way that this movie was filmed, when Palpatine is torturing Luke, like there's a like just the camera work behind it, where you're not seeing Darth Vader as like this intimidating figure. It's filmed from below, so you're seeing Vader look down at his son in sympathy, and like he's looking at him, and there's just something about like this intimidating person with this Nazi helmet on, and you can tell by the way his body is, even though his helmet hasn't moved, that he's feeling compassion. He's watching his son get tortured. He's like going back and forth of just, the scene is so amazing where it's Darth Vader listening to his son scream to death, looking at him, looking at Palpatine, looking at him, looking at Palpatine, just looking back and forth. You can see just, I mean, nothing changed except his just physical presence and the actor in the suit, I don't know, portraying the emotion that you want him to feel, to where you're on the audience, you're like, come on, man, like you gotta help him out, Luke Skywalker. And then he looks, and like you just think like the thoughts going through his head of just like the trauma he's lived through, his mother passing away, his mentor being the one that crippled him, the stuff that like this guy has made him do. And even though he's been, 25 years as Darth Vader, as this boogeyman of the Empire, he remembers of where he started, of a kid that loved his mom, that loved his wife, and it joined up with the Jedi to do good. He was supposed to be the chosen one, and he remembers. And he's like, and now I'm finding my identity not as the chosen one, not as a Jedi master, not as a Sith Lord, but as a dad. And he fucking, no, grabs him and chucks Palpatine over the edge. And I'm just like, he remembers of who he is. He finds his identity not as a murderer. Darth Vader did some dark shit. Like he killed children, he killed Jedi, he did all these different things. And he finally comes back around where he's like, I am not bad, or at least I still have time to be good. And more than anything in this moment, I'm a dad and I need to help out my son. And finally, after all this stuff, Darth Vader remembers that he's Anakin Skywalker and he's a dad.
Shit, man.
God, I love that scene so much. Like the music and just like, just looking, his suit is going to shit. So it's like the suit's just not working. And he's looking. He's just, and then chucks Palpatine over the edge. And you're just like, yes.
Dude, yeah. I mean, and I watched that as a kid, right? And I still remember that. I still remember, I mean, a young kid, like young, a youngling.
Yep.
And I just still remember, the anguish and the pain on Luke Skywalker's face. And I remember the change that happens in Vader when he goes and he picks up Palpatine. And he himself getting like shocked, mm-hmm. and now fucked, right? And he is just taking it in stride. Like the pain of not being a dad anymore was far greater than the pain of the emperor of the fucking galaxy giving everything that he could, that has laid waste to the galaxy in everything that he has done, right? The pain of forgetting who he was all this time was stronger than that. The memory of who he was finally was more powerful for him in that moment to just throw him off. And I remember feeling that as a kid, as a youngling, right? And it's people go, oh, it's a Star Wars, it's a fantasy movie. It's just a science fiction space opera. It's like, yeah, bro, but fucking have you watched it?
Mm-hmm.
Have you felt it? Have you like actually gotten in touch with the human side of your heart and your mind and looking at the core of what this is, not just what clothes it's wearing, right? And maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just every day trying to remember who we are, where we belong, what our role in all of it is, you know, and just trying to remember, because I think we probably deep down inside know it, and it's just getting rid of all of the other voices and all of the other things that are constantly trying to steal our attention and our time, and whether it's intimidating us through fears or appetites or whatever it is that pulls us away from just connecting with the core of who we are and our potential. And maybe this riff today was just the reminder for us, for whoever's listening, to just just shed the fat. Like, take off the mask that we're all wearing, the avatar we're all putting up to show the world how brave, strong, smart, athletic, whatever it is, right? Just put all that stuff away and just be you. Just try being you for a day and remembering that. I mean, earlier when we were on another podcast, when we were talking about Walter Mitty, and when I had found that letter that I wrote to myself, I go back and I go, man, that's a reminder. That's just a reminder of when I wrote that, I was like at the best time in my life I've ever been. And since I have digressed from that, right? But I have that reminder to know that I can still be there. Like, I don't have to stay where I'm at now.
Well, what does Professor X say to Logan when he's in his bed? He just says, "You still have time, Logan.
You still have time, Logan.
You still have time." I think that's what I think the world needs. Like you talk about, just I think we all have potential to. I think we all have potential of great, like being like Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi, or committing acts of evil and becoming Darth Vader, or even like let's even like make it less intense. Where I think we all have the potential of being like King of Gondor, or not rising up to our potential and just being a ranger. But I think when you think about discovering like what your destiny is, how to figure it out, all these things you have to go through. I think the way you figure that out is that you show up for yourself and you show up for people, and you remind yourself just that you are enough. Because like the hobbits on Weathertop, this can be my last thoughts. Of just those hobbits don't give no shits that Aragorn has royal blood in him, or that his profession in Lord of the Rings is actually just a guy who wanders the woods, keeping the woods healthy. He's a glorified park ranger. They just know that he's there, he's present, he knows what he's doing. At least he portrays that, and he shows up for them. When the ring race come and they need help, he shows up. And I think that's how he ended up figuring out his potential, that he could be King of Gondor. But at the same time, knowing that those hobbits don't need the King of Gondor in that moment, they need Aragorn. Like, I'll bring it back to like where we started. So, in the moment last night, right? And you're helping somebody do their homework. You're watching the thing about dinosaurs, which she's seen 1,000 times already. Like, that person is not looking for a person that won cinematographer of the year for Sweet Molly, right? She's also not looking for the person in Iceland that was your peak, or let's say like you've digressed, as you said, which I don't agree with. But your words, not mine. She's not needing at that moment the comparison of like, well, this was peak Sam. This is Sam currently. Sam wants to get back here. I think it's a great goal, but she's not making that comparison. What she's looking for is like, she just wants Sam, someone that's safe, someone that gives a shit about my weird interests, and that will sit and watch a movie with me despite him not knowing what they're saying and not knowing what I'm saying. And I think that's more than enough. Right?
It's true.
God.
It's true. It's true, man.
Yeah.
And
And I think the same thing, like, I'll even, like, not to make you feel uncomfortable, I'll make this like an equilibrium. Her sister, like, when her sister was going through her stuff, she didn't need, the Tyler that people were calling Captain Columbia 2 years ago. She didn't need the person that spoke at the UN. She just needed Tyler. All she needed, that's all she wanted. She didn't need anything more or less than exactly what she got. And was it convenient? No. But shit, I'm glad I was there to at least do something.
yeah. Well, and to maybe just tie this up and put a bow on it, moving forward, for me, for you, for whoever's listening, right? You are enough. And whether there's all these anxieties or fears or threats, you are enough, and that's all that matters, and that's good enough. And you don't have to be Captain Columbia. You don't have to be the best cinematographer in the world. You don't have to be the best mom or the best dad or the best brother or sister or aunt or uncle or neighbor. But if you're just trying to be the best version of yourself and truly just you, not anything else, just you as you and all of it, it's enough. It's good enough. And I know I'm young, but I've lived long enough on this earth to know and see that I believe that there is something greater than us that is overseeing everything. And it, whatever it is, will use you to make things happen, to make it work. Whether you are in your best of bests or worst of worsts, you will be a cog that will fit in this machine of just the human condition. And I think at the end of the day, just being a little bit better than you were when you woke up. And if you're granted breath the next day, you just try it again. And even if you're not better than the day before and you're granted breath for the next day, you just try it again. And maybe you're your worst for 50 years, but on your 51st year, if you're just better, hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
That is good enough. Right? And I'm not trying to, right? I'm not trying to be soft and be like, oh, everyone deserves a trophy, because I don't think that is true either. But we also don't just have to be so hard on ourselves to be so hard on ourselves. So just be you, whoever you are out there. You're someone's inspirational story. Someone looks up to you, someone loves you, someone remembers you, and that's good enough. And if you don't know who you are, discover it. If you've forgotten who you are, try to remember it. Because guess what, Logan? There's still time.
Now I'm thinking of another X-Men with Charles Xavier. You've seen X-Men Days of Future Past?
Uh-huh.
God, I love that show. Where he's talking to his future self and he's like, please, like, we need you to hope again. We need you to figure your shit out. Actually, we didn't talk about this on this like discussion. That is the example where Professor Xavier in 2020 or 2017 when that movie happened or something, he is the most powerful mutant in the world. He's an entrepreneur. He's trained up all these X-Men. He's fought for mutant rights. Like, he is the Nelson Mandela of the mutant world. And in X-Men Days of Future Past, go back 40 years, he's a drunk. He's unemployed. Like, he's doing nothing. He's like this rich kid that's just living off of his estate. And for them to survive what's coming, they have a conversation. He's like you have no idea like what you're going to accomplish, like what your destiny entails. But man, like, we need you to hope again. And that's what changes the fight. That's what changes the fight. And Peter Dinklage is the villain in this movie. And just, man,
We need you to hope again.
we need you to hope again. The world, we need you to hope again.
Fuck, dude.
God.
I have to say, if you've stuck around this long, and I'm not trying to just extend it, right? I don't want to take a good thing and just try to make it better.
No, extend it because I have another thought too. Another movie I saw.
But there is a feeling in this room.
Yeah. I feel inspired. You guys feel inspired? I feel good.
And there's a feeling of like reverence and peace and approval.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for whatever reason, today, in this spot, you and I were supposed to have this conversation.
Yep. And you had all these questions for me. We only
Whether
answered
that's
one,
for
right?
me, whether that's for you, whether that's for some listener, I don't know. Whether it's for nobody. Like,
If it's just for us.
if it's just for us, like, there is something that I can feel in this room with this conversation that it was good, and it was meant to be. So I'm just grateful to be in the present.
Me too. I think of like, I have one more movie I thought that just came into my mind. The Dark Knight Rises, where you talk about two people who just are entwined together. It's Commissioner Gordon and the Batman. And, after Harvey Dent dies, Batman calls it quits for a bit. And when Commissioner Gordon gets beat up by Bane, Batman goes and visits him in the hospital, disguised, with a mask, and he's like, where'd you go? Where'd you go? We needed you. Like, you left. And he was like, I just wasn't needed anymore. He's like, you're needed more than ever. He's like, the Batman has to come back. Has to come back. And Bruce Wayne is like, he's like, what if he doesn't exist anymore? And Commissioner Gordon's like, he has to. He has to for what's coming. And like, I don't want to, bring us down or anything, but like, I think we all know there's going to be some hard days ahead. Like, the political scene in the world is very tense. Like, people are cruel. I think social media, like you talked about social media on one episode, where it's almost like robbing us of our humanity in some ways, to where there's going to be some hard days ahead. And like, I think the world needs our best selves, right? Like, I think the world needs, like, Commissioner Gordon said, like, he's like this person, this Batman, this hero, this person the hero that we deserved but maybe weren't ready for yet. Like, he's got to come back. And with one failure, he forgot who he was before he finally found himself again, before fear finally found him again. And I just really think that because I'm thinking this, talking through some of the conversations now where, like, I'll tell you a quick story and then I'll be done. I had a police officer call me from Colombia the other day, and he was like, there's this thing going down in Colombia, and there's this girl that needs help. There's a 16-year-old kid, and we just got to keep her safe because the bad guys are coming. They're coming hard, and they don't care about collateral damage, whether that mean me or the cops or the girl or her family. And he was like, made a joke because he was the one that gave me the title of Captain Colombia. And he was like, he made a joke, and he was like, you better call the captain. And I told him, I was like, just had a rough day. I was like, dude, he doesn't exist. He doesn't exist anymore. And the cop was like, well, you better fucking call it because we need his help now. This person needs his help now. And just like, this guy's my good friend. And he's the one that pinned the medal on me. And he wasn't there for my bullshit that day where it's like, I don't even know if this guy exists anymore. And he's like, well, give him a fucking call because we need him back because, my part to play in this is fairly small in this whole thing that we're going through, but it's a part. And maybe there's a lesson in there of like, if you see someone that maybe, like, don't forget who you are, right? Don't forget Sam, Tyler, like whoever you're listening to, but also don't allow people in your circle to forget who they are either, that they are enough as well. Because if you're observant, if you have, the gift of intuition or whatever you want to call it, the gift of the Holy Spirit, you'll know if people in your inner circle are just maybe doubting themselves a little bit. And kind words go a long way. And calling people out sometimes on their shit, which is, I think, what I still need. I wouldn't say I'm quite there yet, but I'm getting there. Of just being like, don't let people forget who they are either. Don't forget who you are, but don't let other people forget who they are either. Because that's what Gordon did for Batman in that moment. And like, Batman heard that from Alfred forever, I'm sure, being locked in the same house with the guy for 8 years. But he needed someone else. He needed just a slight kick in the ass from somebody else to be like, look, I know who you really are. And you're not quite remembering who you really are. Me, and the world needs this version of you, and you're digressing. So please, whoever that is, please have that person come back.
Give that guy a fucking call.
What?
I said, give that guy a fucking call.
Who?
The old version, right?
Yeah. Give that guy a fucking call.
Give that guy a fucking call.
Yeah, you better fucking call it. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. But it was a good, it's just a good reminder, a good be like, hey, don't fuck with me right now. I don't have time for this shit. Like, if you say he doesn't exist anymore, well, bring him back, or I don't know. Like, just do something, because for this pity party that I'm having right here, I don't have time for it. I don't need patience for it. And we don't need a lesser version of this. We need the full version. We need the full, evolved, ready to fuck shit up version, or we're going to lose. And he said that. He made me feel, I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but he made me feel that way by being like, well, go find him. Give him a call, because we need him now.
Dude, I love that. I love that. Because in that moment, he's not worried about, am I going to offend Tyler? Am I going to ruin, is this going to hurt my friendship with Tyler? Like, it's like, I don't have time for this shit. Fucking Tyler, where the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Right? And I say that, but to everyone.
Yeah.
Sam, fucking wake up, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get out of your own way. You're the only thing that's stopping you right now. Cut the bullshit. Cut the excuses. Find a different thing to blame. That's what actually should be blamed. And it's just you. It's no one else's problem. It's no one else's fault. No one else is making you sit on your ass, Sam. Sam is, though. So when Sam's ready to stretch his fucking legs and go for a walk and figure life out, fucking give him a call. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, go find him.
Go find him.
Cool.
That's good shit. That's good shit.
That's good shit.
It's good shit, everyone. That's a Locked Off Logic exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we go,
check out our Patreon. We're going to start putting some stuff on there, some exclusive content. I had one person on YouTube ask me for my training plan. And so I'm going to put it on the Patreon. I'm going to put it on the Patreon along with some like meal prep stuff that you can buy and help support the podcast with what's on my, with like my, what I do to work out every day. And also me and Sam, maybe Sam will write a little PDF on just, what it takes to, what do you wish he would have known before he went into like cinematography school, so people can gain access to something like that. Like we're gonna start putting some exclusives on the Patreon. Check us out there, and then as always, subscribe on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. It goes a long way. And that's the housekeeping items.
And final thing of the day: be sure to tell someone that you love them.
Boom, bro. That was a good fucking episode, man. Oh, I feel better.
That was good shit, dude.
That was good stuff. That was a good riff. Got it.
That was good shit.
Yeah.
Good shit. It's these jeans I'm wearing.